Thank you very much. While my slides are coming up, I'm not used to seeing my face like that. So, I mean, I look pretty serious and engaged. It's interesting. I had a colleague say, it's weird. Usually you go to big gatherings to see rock stars, and now it's to see doc stars. So I want to thank the members of Parliament for having us here. I want to thank the organizers. I want to thank my colleagues who've been brave enough to stand up for the truth around the world, in spite of the slings and the arrows, our attacks on our licenses, attacks on free speech. I want to thank all of you for the efforts that you've all put into telling the truth at all costs. And we, are in the middle of something that's not really about a virus, it's about free speech. And still we see much of the world worried about the virus and living in fear as we're 3 years into 2 weeks of flattening the curve. As we sit here now, there are countries passing laws that are preventing people from speaking science, speaking the truth, preventing the opportunity to engage in dialogue. We've seen the loss and the death of informed consent around the world. How many people were told of all the harms to the brain, to the heart, to the reproductive organs prior to getting these injections? I would posit that none have, and I think that's the problem with which we're faced. If a therapy is effective, it doesn't matter if it isn't safe. And obviously, we can hound the world with all the data in the world, but if people don't listen, it doesn't matter. Are my slides up, or are they still loading, Robbie? Okay, they're coming, okay. I know a lot of people have injection regret. They were hoping not to get this, but because they wanted to travel or because they were coerced into thinking that these investigational biological products were actually a vaccine. And as you can see from all the data we've received today, they most certainly weren't. We've seen the death of public health. Vitamin D was ignored. We have a vitamin D deficiency pandemic around the world that could have allayed and prevented much of the harms that we did see. We have an obesity pandemic around the world. We have sick care systems around the world, not health care systems. And probably the biggest death we've seen around the world in the last 3 years is the death of curiosity and the death of critical thinking. And the laws around the world are irrelevant if there's no will to enforce the laws and the regulations that are on the books. So we've also seen much corruption happen all over a little virus that was no worse than a flu. I'm going to start by showing you an excessive list of studies showing the mutagenicity of these shots. Oh, wait a minute, I'm not, because there isn't an excessive list of the carcinogenicity and the mutagenicity studies. I'll show you all the ones from Pfizer right now. Oh, no, I won't. Wait, I'll show you the long list of ones from... No, I won't. Okay, I'll show you the mutagenic carcinogenic studies from AstraZeneca and J&J. No, I won't. Because the studies weren't done. They don't exist. I always start my talk like this. The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read. And it seems that much of the medical profession and much of politics around the world is suffering this problem of illiteracy. And of course, all scientists and doctors agree when you censor the ones who don't. Now, how many people in this room know about the Trusted News Initiative? Please raise your hand. Okay, that's about half the room. That's more than most audiences. The reason you haven't heard most of the things that you've heard today is because the media is in collusion with whatever the powers that be in preventing you from getting that information. All right, next question then. Let's talk about the monster in the room, spike protein and cancer mechanism potentials. How many people in this room, after the rollout of the injections, have a friend, a colleague, a patient who had an unexpected cancer, a very aggressive cancer? Please, show of hands. Wow. Let the record show, for those who can't see the room, that that's more than half of the room. So who's the pathologist? The pathologist is the most important doctor that you never meet that you always hope is right. And I'm honored to be here with my esteemed colleagues. We're the quality control of medicine. We're the ones, if we see something, we say something, whether it's convenient or not. And why does it matter? Because it's your life and death between our eyeballs. It's what we do every day. All good science begins with observation. My colleagues here, and I want to thank Dr. Burkhart and his group because they were the first to really start pointing out these vaccinal harms and the deaths due to this spike protein. Thank you, Dr. Burkhart. I was at a meeting in Texas just 2 days ago, and more pathologists were there. I was at another meeting recently. Pathologists are seeing this. Some of them are still afraid to say something because of loss of profession or job. Clinical observation, the cancer rates are off the charts and growing, and it's really unfortunate. Insurance data sets out of Germany show a marked increase in unexpected cancers as well. Colleague Dr. Deglege, oncologist in the UK, met with him a couple months ago. He's seeing astounding numbers of very aggressive cancers in his population. Now, this is somebody who's been doing oncology for 40 years. So when you see something, you say something. He has spoken out. It's time to stop these shots. Here's work from the ethical skeptic, some very good data crunching. I'm going to show you 4 graphs. And all 4 of these show the increasing trends over expected averages in cancers applied from data from the CDC. Here we have another graph. See, in 2021, something interesting happened. And here you have the upward trend. And these are reported carcinomas over expected in trends. Here we see the same thing. See that line going upwards since 2021. What happened in mid-2021? Oh, I don't know, maybe mandates of an experimental biological product injected into billions of people around the world. Well, let's look at one more. Oh my gosh, same thing. That is not anecdote, my friends. That is not anecdote. One cannot find that for which they do not look. The cells don't lie. As you saw from my colleagues, the spike protein is present throughout all tissues of the body. That is not meant to be. Human cells are meant to make human proteins, not to make toxins. So to inject a gene-based product into the body and make your cells the factory for a toxin is psychologically insane. What we need to demand is the ICD-10, the diagnostic codes in all databases in every country in the EU, in the United States, in all countries of the world. Those should be updated weekly. These numbers are available, and yet we have a lag in reporting of easily accessible data. Every doctor that sees a patient puts a code after a visit. Every pathologist that sees a slide puts a code after a diagnosis. These data are available in the data sets of every country that uses the international data codes. Easy as that. All this data should be transparent and available. It should not be hidden. So really quickly, I'll go back one there. Sorry, lost my flow. All right, cancer mechanisms, gene mutations. Can the spike protein do that? You bet it can. Hypoxic environment from clotting? You bet it can. Reactivation of latent viruses, does spike protein do that? You bet it can. Low interferon. Interferon is critical in fighting off cancer. Does spike protein do that? You bet it does. Decrease in cell mitochondrial energy because of destruction of mitochondria. Studies out of the Salk Institute, you bet the spike protein does that. Loss of immune surveillance and suppression of your immune system, you bet it does that. Fragmented microRNAs from impure vials, you bet. Hormonal dysregulation, you bet. Toll-like receptor alterations that are necessary for keeping cancer in check. Does the spike protein do that? You bet it does. Is there an SV40 cancer virus promoter region within the Pfizer vials? Yes, there is. All of these are mechanisms the spike protein can cause. So why would we inject people with something that makes a spike protein that can do all these things that can lead to cancer mechanisms? Good question. Now, does the spike protein go away quickly? No. Does the mRNA go away quickly? No. This study by Dr. Roltgen out of Stanford showed that the body produces, sorry, Spanish. I didn't mean to hacer la presentación en español. The body hangs on to the synthetic mRNA for at least 60 days and makes spike during that whole period of time. Not in everybody, but in this study, for at least 60 days, the body still had mRNA and was still making spike protein that does all those mechanisms that I just showed you. Does the spike protein bind to the p53 family of genes? Yes, it does. The p53 is the guardian of your genome, and if that becomes dysregulated, guess what can happen? Cancer pathways ensue. It also binds to the BRCA gene, which is responsible for breast and ovarian cancer. and that's the guardian of your genome. And if that goes awry, all cancer pathways can open up. This I borrowed from my colleague, Dr. Burkhardt, with his permission. This is all those blue cells are a lymphoma of the stomach. And what's fascinating is all the brown dots here, that is spike protein in every one of those cancer cells. These are studies that should have been done before one needle went in one human arm anywhere in the world. None of these were done. This is one from my laboratory. This is a pancreatic adenocarcinoma. See all the pink dots that should not be there? That is spike protein in each one of those cancer cells. Did we stain like Dr. Burkhardt did to make sure it wasn't virus that was making the spike protein? We ruled out the other proteins from the virus? Yes, we did. This is post-vaccinal. And this patient who thought she was doing the right thing because her doctor, without giving her informed consent, talked her into receiving a shot, and now she only has a few months to live for a virus for which she was at very little to no risk. What about the vials? Well, the European Medicine Agency in documents showed that the purity of the mRNA was only 50%. What does that mean? There is a lot of microRNA in these vials that isn't coding for spike protein, may not code at all, but may code for other proteins. Same thing in Australia. The vials weren't pure, so instead what did the agency did? They just dropped the standard and said, okay, 50%'s okay now. That's not what we do with medical drugs or therapeutic products at all. And here we have from Comirnaty cell studies that these cell cultures are making a protein that's supposed to weigh 141 kilodaltons. That's what the spike weighs. Yet they're making something that weighs 190 and 100. They're making other proteins other than the spike protein. Are these carcinogenic? Maybe. And we know microRNAs, these fragmented RNAs, are known carcinogens. Known carcinogens. So impure RNA in the vial can be carcinogenic. Bone marrow, here's one from my laboratory. Every little pink dot that you see there, in the bone marrow, that's spike protein, damaging stem cell lines in the bone marrow. Another reason we are seeing a marked increase in lymphomas and leukemias. It's wiping out macrophage lines, natural killer cell lines, T cell lines, suppressing normal function of the immune system. And then this paper was retracted. It shows that the DNA is damaged by the spike protein, that it gets into the nucleus and destroys immune cell function. This is important as well because that DNA damage, mismatch repair can happen in most tissues in the body. This was retracted because at the NIH, there were characters who decided they didn't want this information to be public. So a FOIA request requesting all communications between two characters, I'm not going to go through the long story, pushed to get that paper retracted because this cancer-promoting mechanism is inconvenient to the truth. And all 490 pages concerning the retraction of these papers will not be released by the government. They're holding them because there's a story being hidden behind the companies and the NIH knowing that there was carcinogenic potential in these products. What about the nanoparticles? Well, on the nanoparticles from Pfizer, from Moderna, from AstraZeneca, there's a warning. This product is not for human or veterinary use. These lipid nanoparticles on the chemical manufacturer safety data sheets clearly state these nanoparticles are not for human or veterinary use, yet 5 billion people have them in their bodies now. And there's one product in J&J that's a known carcinogen in animals. So here we have, these are all fun pictures from the laboratory. We have the beast, we have scared panda bears, people, we have the guards, and then we have, obviously, the investigators. That's the pathologists. Autopsy should be done on any and every sudden death post-vaccine. Spike protein are commercially available, these studies and stains that we do. Every laboratory in the world should be doing this now and telling the truth and doing the post-mortem on the damage being caused. So warning to Europe and to the world, we have a potentially severe social and economic widespread impact if these cancer trends continue. This isn't just about a handful of people dying from cancer. This is a societal warning that this can have grave social and economic impact on many nations. What do we need to do? In conclusion, we need to, well, go back to Kierkegaard in a second. Help. One more. Touchy. Okay, we need to stop these injections because all the variants, Wuhan, BA4, BA5, they're extinct. These are expired shots for something that's extinct. All these variants of the virus are gone. No shot should be going into any arm anywhere in the world. These are expired products for extinct variants of a virus. These injections can never keep up with what's out there because of the nature of coronavirus families. We need to stop the unproven technology, the lipid nanoparticle plus a pathogen sequence. This is dangerous, not proven. We don't have 10 years of safety data for this platform, this technology, yet $500 million plants are being built in Kenya, in Canada, in the UK, in Australia for mRNA technology, for a technology that's not proven and is known to be dangerous. We need to demand here in the EU and all nations of the world that the databases be opened up immediately. We need to acknowledge and compensate and help those that have been injured by these injections. And I will conclude very simply. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true. Thank you very much.